Welcome to the Maximize Business Value podcast brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners like you to maximize your business value and achieve the exit of your dreams, whatever that means to you. With insights gained from over 100 business transactions, we share real-world strategies, lessons, and expert advice to help you build long-term, sustainable value in your business. Each episode is hosted by one of our Mastery certified partners. They're seasoned experts who've helped countless business owners navigate the complexities of growth, scaling, and building value. They bring first-hand experience, actionable insights, and a passion for helping you build a business that thrives. So let's dive in.
This episode is the second of a two-part release. To hear part one, follow the link below. Thank you for listening to the Maximize Business Value podcast.
Those are sometimes, I would say that over time with clients that I've had, that work with us for at least a number of years, I probably have one good, really difficult conversation at least annually with them about, hey, one of them was actually rather comical. I'm sitting with the partners in a firm that really was trying to build and be prepared to sell, and they kept focusing on the wrong things. And I finally said, you know what? It's okay. If you guys don't want to sell this business and you just need us consulting, I'm happy to consult with you. That's a different deal though, but It sounds like y'all just really don't want to sell this business. And that went, oh no, we do. Okay. Got it. We need to be working on other stuff.
Maybe some seriousness. Yeah. Let's stop majoring in the minors.
I love that. Yeah. Stop majoring in the minors. That's for sure.
So with that, as you mentioned, the process. So can you briefly kind of list the steps that we take at Mastery to address this owner dependency and kind of the order that we execute them in? And I know it varies a little bit, client to client or even industry to industry, sometimes, but there is a cadence to it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, there certainly is.
And we mentioned, first of all, you got to admit there's an issue. Okay, we have an issue.
Yeah, first step is understanding that it is an issue. And by the way, in order to understand that it's an issue, one of the questions I ask, if they say, "Oh no, my business can operate without me," I always ask my favorite question to ask business owner is, "When was the last time you took a 3-week vacation and didn't call in?"
Yeah.
No email, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do that. Oh, so in your business, why can't you do that? Well, because things will fall apart. Oh, and you don't have an owner dependency issue? Huh. How do we reconcile that, right? So it's first is that recognition and understanding. Second is really starting to document those things that you do, what we talked about just a few minutes ago. Write those things down, start developing processes around that. I think a third and really important step in this process is doing a succession plan, understanding how that if I'm gone, what happens? Who takes over? What responsibilities do people have? But I always like to extend that further out. It's not just about the owner dependency, it's about single point of failure.
Yes.
Where if you've got a bookkeeper that is got the keys to the kingdom on your financials, I mean, soup to nuts. They do the collections, the billing, the purchase orders, the reconciliations, all that stuff. Imagine if that person, something happened to them, what it would do to your business.
I've got a real world example of that with my own company. So we had that person because they were so good in that job. We just kept loading stuff on them. So they're doing receivables, payables, inventory management. They were taking care of payroll. They were doing all the different things, right? There was a life circumstance that changed in this lady's life. She ended up embezzling from our company, and to a sizable amount, mid 6 figures amount.
Wow.
And so because literally she kind of had the keys to the kingdom, right? Because we had said we're trying to be less owner dependent, so we just kept moving stuff up. The problem is we moved it to one person with not the proper checks and balances and
Mhm.
controls in place. And
Yep.
so luckily we intercepted it, and we stemmed our losses, but we had losses on that.
Oh
But
yeah.
that was that's kind of the if the owner's a choke point, that's one thing. But if you have other ones within your business, uh, the other thing that we found that I've noticed it, and I think you recommended this, but I've talked about this with every client, that succession planning is not just for the owner or what the owner does. I think it's for every key position in the company. If you've got somebody in a key, they're the sales lead, they're the head of business development. Who's their backup? Who's their heir apparent? Uh, who are they training to take their spot, right? Some people resist that. They don't want to think that, well, I've got to, I can't train, Sally. She could take over my job. That's not the point. If you're the business development leader and you want to go on a 3-week vacation, you'd love to
Hmm.
have somebody as a second in command that you feel totally confident can handle things while you're gone. That
Yep.
strengthens the company, obviously, but it also strengthens that person's role.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
and as uh, the people who think that holding on control of their little domain
mhm.
are the people who are unpromotable.
Yes,
So
yeah.
they're also stuck in that position.
Well,
So
and they can become guerrilla warfare people in your company that you can, they can be working
yep,
against you a lot
yep,
if the
absolutely.
circumstances, warrant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to me, so that succession planning at kind of all levels in the organization,
Mhm.
decide, who's next for each role,
Yeah. But don't
and
leave
then
out
go
the
down a
owner. Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
What's that?
Don't leave out the owner, right?
Exactly. Don't start with the owner,
Yeah.
but then do the same thing with
Yeah.
the other folks. And let's see. But sorry, I was just getting a call. I wanted to dismiss it before it got crazy. Um, the um, then go through a process to train people the stuff that can be trained.
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, document all of those processes and put
Yeah.
them into a
Yeah.
manual,
Good
right?
time of
Into a,
doing it. Good time of doing
we call it a playbook,
it.
put it into a playbook so that everybody knows, how to access those
Yeah.
kinds of things. Now, don't put all your passwords in the playbook. Don't, but, here's the process. Here's how we do this, right?
Well, in
And
that
make
way,
sure,
yeah, it's a good reminder for the long-term folks. It's invaluable for new people onboarding. Uh,
yep.
so, last question on this topic. So, and I know we've been through this with virtually every client that I know of. On average, how long have you seen it take to get past this obstacle, to get to that point where the business can be declared pretty owner independent?
If you really work hard at it, I've seen some that can do it very quickly. And when I say very quickly, I'm talking about 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, yeah,
But the average is probably a little over 12 months.
yeah.
Think of it as giving birth to a baby. They don't walk the first day.
So
You know,
gestation period here.
that's it. When they come out, they're not, smoking a cigar, drinking a whiskey, right? I mean, they're gotta learn to crawl before you can walk. And so probably a good year or so for a business that's really owner dependent to start freeing from
Yeah,
those shackles. And by the way, here's the cool thing about it, and I know you've experienced this with your own clients, but once they start getting a taste of that freedom,
yeah.
now it becomes addictive.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, I'm going to take more time off. Oh, I can teach them how to do this.
Yep.
I can do that. I my own story, which I've shared many times, is that when I bought a little company back in 2001, and I totally overhauled the sales compensation model because it was wrong. It was jacked
Yeah.
up and it was not incenting the right behavior. Well, of course, as you can imagine, salespeople were up in arms, but I made it a simple process, and here it is. And then, I mean, I had three salespeople at the time. It took me, 15 minutes to calculate sales commissions at the end of the month, and moving on. But of course, over time, the company became more complex. Our
Yep.
sales became more complex. We were adding things. We were doing things differently, and it no longer was a 15-minute process. Oh, and by the way, I woke up one day and I had 70 sales reps, and I realized one morning I'm getting ready to go to work, and my wife was like, "What kind of day? What do you got going on today?" And I was like, "Oh, it's the beginning of the beating." And she said, "What?" And I said, "It's sales commissions." She said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "It takes me 2 days. It's 2 full days a month to calculate this, but it's got to be done at this
Yeah.
in this time frame because we got to pay them out and all this." And as I'm describing this to her, I'm having this revelation. Wh- Why am I doing 2 days? There's only 20 work days in a month.
Yep.
That's that is 10% of my work month, and
Yeah.
I'm spending time to do that. So I went in, and Kim, who works with us now at Mastery Partners, I walked into her office and I said, "I don't know what you're doing today, but yeah, but scratch all that. You're going to sit with me,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna speak it because I'd never written all this down. I mean, we had the sales model, right? I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah.
we knew how to price things, we knew how to, but I'd never really talked through the process of here's how I look at these, view these, and
Yep.
approve the commissions. And I said, you're gonna sit with me for 2 days,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna just speak it while I'm doing it, and you're gonna write it all down for me. By the way, that's an easy way to document,
Yep.
something. Find somebody to come in and sit with you and just speak it while you do it. And Kim is amazing. If any, folks who don't know her, just don't realize how really organized and this is the kind of stuff that she loves.
Yeah.
And so she documented it all. And I said, okay, now that you've documented all this, next month I'm going to come sit with you on these 2 days, and I'm going to watch you do it. So that time rolled around the following month. And I bebopped into her office and I said, "Hey, it's time for us to, do the sales commission." She goes, "I'll tell you what, I wrote all this down. I documented it well. I now have a notebook." She had a notebook of, here's how I do this.
Yep.
And she says, let me just try it. And I will invariably have questions. I'll come ask. And I said, okay. So at the end of that day, she came in and had 10 or 12 questions, which I easily answered. She documented what was going on, and she finished the process the next day. And that was it. She now was the owner of that. And I said, keep that document up to speed because you'll eventually pass that off to somebody else. Well, here's what I found. And this is a real pisser. This is the one that just really socked me in the face, right? With a like a 2x4. The next month, she did what had taken me, 2 full days to do. The next month, she did it in less than a day, and then she got the process down to about 4 hours after
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it was doing what I did, but doing it much more efficiently, and because she was thoughtful about, well, that doesn't seem like the easiest way to do this, and
Yep.
and she was accurate. She never missed. I always spot checked, and there you go. So I got rid of that. I gained back
Yeah.
10% of my work month,
Isn't that
10%
amazing?
of my work month
Yeah.
by giving that control to somebody else.
Yep.
And I just became addicted. By the way, I actually told this story. I spoke at a conference, and Kim happened to be in the room, and I told that story. And at the end of telling that story, she said, "Can I add something to that?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." I was like, what is there to add? I mean, I'm a great
Yeah.
storyteller." And she stood up and she said, "The next person that I handed off to figured out how to do it in half the amount of time it was taking me." Well, there you go. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yep.
that is the name of the game, right?
Yeah.
We get into our own heads on, well, I've got to do this and I've got to
Yep.
do it this way, and there are easier ways to do things, and
Yep.
stepping back and letting somebody else have fresh eyes on it, that's a great way to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
that's what a great story. Yeah, and a great example of yeah, it's these are the steps you take to reduce that dependency,
yeah.
across
Well,
the
and even I mean, look,
yeah,
everything we talk about on this podcast, everything in my books and the
yeah,
process that we use, the reason we wrote those things is because I've lived it, right?
yep,
Or you've lived it in your
yeah,
own business. That
definitely, yeah,
embezzlement story, yeah, I mean,
mm,
well,
yeah,
if you've been there, then you understand,
yeah.
right?
And I tell you,
So,
when I walk into an organization and there's a concentration of activity in the financial side, that's the first thing I quiz them on because that's a very real possibility, because you
yep,
never know what happens in people's lives. That's the thing.
nope, you just never know.
Yeah. So one last thing, this is, after all, the Maximizing Business Value podcast. So what's the one most important thing that you recommend to business owners, what they do to build value in their business?
All right, forget about all that owner dependency stuff. No, I'm just kidding. It's a part of the process.
Yeah,
You probably won't be surprised, and our listeners probably won't either. But it's if you haven't done so already, and you're a listener to this podcast, for goodness sakes, go to our website and click the button and schedule
yeah,
just a call.
yeah,
Talk with someone like Dave or Terry or Darren or
yeah,
Mark or Amy or me or whoever. That call doesn't cost you anything,
yeah,
but they'll ask you a lot of questions and learn about your business. And if you decide to engage with us, it'll be because it's a good fit and because
yeah,
you realize that there's going to be value there. But one of the first things we do in our engagement, we do that end-to-end assessment of the business, but you get a valuation too. And that is so important. If you know what you need to retire on,
yep,
you need to understand what your business is
yeah.
worth so that
Not
you
what
can
you
make
think
it
it's
worth.
worth or what you saw other businesses sell for, or what your
Yep,
buddy at the club, sold his for. Yeah, you need a real idea of exactly where you are, situational awareness,
absolutely.
So
Yep, absolutely. You
yeah,
need to understand where you sit. And so the one thing that can be the biggest outcome for anybody listening to this podcast is just schedule that call. It could be the most valuable
yeah,
hour of your time that you've ever spent in your business.
yeah. Super advice.
And I just and it doesn't cost anything to
No.
chat with us for an hour.
Yeah, and we are so one of the things I so appreciate about working with Mastery is that if we're not a fit, we recognize it almost instantly, and we won't waste anybody's time, and we will just say, this is not, you're not a fit for us, we're not a fit for you, at least at this point in time. The truth
Yep.
may change in the future, but we certainly are not there to spin people's cycles, and we're not billing by the minute and any of that kind of stuff.
No.
It's very defined how we do things. That's one of the things I so appreciate because so many people in the advice business, I kind of liken them to the big giant consultants. Just how many people can we put on the project and how much an hour can we charge?
Yeah.
Or as you mentioned on the brokerage side, it's like there's that holy grail. Nothing happens till we do a transaction, so we're driving to that transaction, and we are
Mhm.
180 degrees from that. So
Yeah.
that's a wonderful place, and it gives me a lot of personal satisfaction dealing with people that we deal with them in a very fair manner. I think the way
Yeah.
they'll
It is great fun. It is
yeah,
so fun to serve
yeah,
business owners and to see the needle move and to see the lights come on
yeah,
when
yeah,
we're discovering things and it gets me up every morning. I love that.
yeah.
And I'm not having to do commissions.
Yeah, see, it's even better.
There you
All
go.
right. Well, thanks again so much. It's always great to get the guy in the room, or so to speak, the virtual room
Yes.
anyway,
Yes.
and go over this stuff because it's so invaluable. I mean, I learn something every time. I'm sure the listeners do as well. So I just want to remind everybody, this is the Maximize Business Value podcast. This is where you can find practical advice if you're a business owner or you're running a business on how to build long-term sustainable value in that business. Be sure to tune in each week. We cover a variety of topics. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single episode. And with that, I'm Dave Casey. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Maximize Business Value podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas on how you can continue driving value in your business. But remember, it's not just about listening. It's about taking massive action. Visit our website, masterypartners.com, for more resources. Grab a copy of any of the books in the Maximize Business Value series on Amazon or via the links below. And don't hesitate to reach out if you want to know how to apply these concepts to your business. So until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to relentlessly execute while you maximize business value.